Hey guys, welcome to my introduction video for Kazuya. The reason I'm making this video is for you guys to learn something about Mr. Kazuya here and figure out if he's the character you want to learn. First off, how difficult is Kazuya? I would say he's difficult. Above average at least. He's a Mishima and all Mishimas are difficult to some extent, especially for beginners. But I think Kazuya is the easiest to learn from all the Mishima. You know what they say, easy to learn, hard to master, and it's the same for Kazuya. His game plan is really simple, he has only a couple of moves he uses, so it's really fast to learn him. And his execution isn't that hard compared to Effulgent, for example, if you want to just normally play him without any problems. So just in general, I would say Kazuya is a hard character, and if you're a beginner, I wouldn't recommend starting off with Mishima, because it's better to start off with an easier character. In general, if you start off with a hard character, you can add 50 to 100% more time to your average learning time. So if you pick a character for 200 hours, which is an easy character, you would spend 400 hours with a Mishima for the same effect, because you're busy learning execution stuff and you're worrying about a lot of useless stuff. And it's hard, okay? So Tekken is a frustrating game. Who would I recommend Kazuya to? I would recommend Kazuya to players who really like challenge, difficult characters. I would recommend him to players who really like execution and don't mind grinding execution. And I would recommend Kazuya to players who really love to learn about the game and frame data and apply his crazy punishment. Also, I would recommend Kazuya for very defensive oriented players. But if you want a defensive oriented character with less execution, there are better alternatives like Asuka, for example. So, let's get started. Who would I not recommend Kazuya to? Okay, I would not recommend Kazuya to people who really like to pressure, because you pressure with Kazuya with movement and with mind games and timing. You don't really have crazy frames to pressure people by. You have, you have plus and block moves, but these are really hard to execute mostly, or have limited range like forward 4. And as a beginner, it will be hard for you to pressure people because an instant while running is hard to do. Forward 4 has limited range. But yeah, so I wouldn't recommend him for players who really like to pressure people. I wouldn't recommend him for people who really like strings either, because it doesn't have a lot of strings. Those are not really mix-up strings, so if you like characters like Miguel or Law, he's not a character for you. And if you really hate execution, already said it. So let's go to his weaknesses and strengths. So, how would I describe Kazuya in terms of characters in general? So on first hand, he's a Mishima, so in comparison to other characters, he has a wave dash, he has all this Mishima stuff like a wave dash, electric, if I can actually electric, he has a hell sweep, he has a 4-4, he has tsunami kicks, so he's a Mishima, he comes with all their benefits. Then, if you compare him to the other Mishimas, he's the defensive oriented Mishima. So his poking is a bit garbage. He has a 15 frame down forward 1, which will be your main mid poking tool in general with most characters. His is 2 frames slower than the average. Most characters have a 13 frame down forward 1. Kazuya's is 2 frames slower, so it's a bit harder to poke with him, and you might rely on other stuff like back 2-4, which is duckable, or while standing 4. I would say usually while standing 4 will be your main mid poke or down forward 4, the first hit. So his poking is a bit mediocre. He doesn't have a lot of panic buttons. By panic buttons I mean if you're overwhelmed with the situation, sometimes, especially if you start a game, you might like to have a panic button, like one move that solves your problem sometimes, like a hop kick or stuff like that. Kazuya's best panic move is big jab and to some extent down forward 2. Down forward 2 is a good panic move in that sense that it's homing, you submit, and on counter hit you get a combo here. Oops. Yeah. But... yeah. And when you're in rage, this is your only true panic move. His rage drive is a great panic move because high cross is really fast and it's really damaging. I'm just gonna show you the damage of this one. 63 damage. So, now that we have established that he... okay, one more thing. One more thing. He has an incomplete pro game, so he has a 1+2 break, even 2 1+2 breaks, but he doesn't have any 1 or 2 breaks. So your throw game is not as good as it could be, but still serviceable. I mean, most characters don't have a complete throw game. And that concludes the list of his weakness. Mediocre poking, lack of panic buttons, and mediocre throw game. Let's go to the good parts. Great lows. He has a lot of crazy lows that you can use for a lot of situations. Great mix-up potential on most of his lows. Great Oki Vortex. Kazuya is one of the strongest, if not the strongest Oki Vortex, and most easiest to apply from all the Mishimas. His basic Vortex is just Hell Sweep, forward 3 for the mid mix-up here. I'm just gonna show some basic combos so you get the drift. This is his mid variant, this is his low variant, which you can mix up. For example, if your opponent expects you to whiff and he blocks, you can just do 2. Then, if they don't want to stand up, you can just apply forward 4. And even if they stand up, you can still apply forward 4 because it is a mid and it will hit them if they duck. Let me just show it. So he has a great 50-50 and it is at low level brain dead. I mean, seriously, if you start out with Kazuya, nobody will have any defense, especially against Mishimas. So at first his 50-50 will be really easy to apply once you master the wave dash, and nobody knows how to defend against that. Once you get to intermediate levels where people understand how to defend in Tekken generally, you will become much more hard to play because you actually have to apply stuff like instant while standing free for homing, or homing moves in general. But his 50-50 is really great, and when you start out with him at lower ranks, it's really easy to apply because you can play him 2-dimensionally. Which brings me to another weakness I forgot. He's very linear, so your greatest weakness with Kazuya is that you always have to worry about people stepping you. Because... let's just show you. I'm just gonna show you a couple of moves he has and how steppable they are. So his weakness is sidestep left. Yes. Yes, as you can see. Yes. What else? As you can see, most of his moves are steppable to this side, and you have to actively use homing moves to discourage people from stepping in. So this is his biggest weakness, and this is where the fun comes in, having the mind games and figuring out when to do homing moves and which kind of homing moves. Let's go back to his strengths. So, crazy 50-50, really easy to apply if you're not an idiot like me. Is he ducking? Oh, yeah, my bad, sorry. God, no. Really easy to apply. Then what else? great lows in general. I already said that, but keep this in mind, he has great lows. This low here, for example, is plus on block, and you can do some cheesy stuff with this. Like, I mean, this is a green rank classic, don't steal please. Counter hit. This here is a green rank classic because counter hit this here launches, and this here is +4 if I remember correctly, and this is a 14 frame mid counter hit launcher, so this is a frame trap as people called it. If your opponent presses buttons here, you get the counter hit for a good counter hit. Again, great lows. What else? Great punishment. He has a 10 frame hit confirmable punish. What does it mean? It means you can do the first two hits which are safe, and if they connect you can react to that at the third hit. The third hit is punishable on block, but as you know already it's confirmable, so you don't have to worry about it. What else? What else does he have? 11 frame. 33 damage, wall spin. Most characters have a similar punish, but at 12 frames. His is 11 frame. 14 frame launcher, and 15 frame easy mode punish, which being down forward 1 and 2 guaranteed forward. This while standing launching. This is crazy. And just to say one thing, his electric is actually 1 frame faster than most electrics, so this is not practical, nobody does that, but in theory he has a 13 frame standing launch. But nobody, you won't use it like that anyway, most likely. But just so you know, his is a bit faster, in theory. Then his while standing punishment. Great 11 frame. And now comes his big thing, a 13 frame while standing launcher. So if there is anything, I'm just gonna show you with one example here. Let's bring my good friend Brian to the table. Okay. I'm so bad with half circles, please. Don't laugh at me. So, quarter circle backwards. Soccer kicks here is -13. So Kazuya can launch people. So any low or any ultra with another move. So here we have a low that is -13. So Kazuya, of course, can launch it. This is a gameplay changer for a couple of matchups. So this is one of his biggest strengths. 13 frame while standing launcher. Most characters can launch at 15 frames. So his is 2 frames sooner. And this can be a huge game changer for a lot of matchups. Let's just see. Let's bring Heihachi to the table. Just so you understand as a beginner, a lot of characters have low moves that are specifically -13 because most characters get like a 30 or so knockdown punish. But Kazuya get a full launch, so all these moves become much more dangerous against him. And also, there are moves that force crouch, which are -13. For example, this move from Heihachi here, which can also be launched by Kazuya. I don't know why the weather changed. But I'm gonna switch characters because I don't like the weather change here at all. Let me bring my good friend Devilchin back. So, a 13 frame while standing launcher. Great. What else do we have? Oh, it stopped raining. Nice. At 15 frames, he has a normal launcher like most characters. Haven't played Kazuya for a while, so please don't judge. And this overall covers his punishment, basically. For punishment, he's the god of punishment. He's one of the best characters overall when it comes to punishment. What else? Other strengths. 50-50, lows, punishment. Yeah. And his other punishment, his other strength is just a Mishima strength, and it's great mobility, electric for great whip punishment. So, overall, Kazuya is a very strong character. He's more defensive oriented and less balanced than, for example, Devil Jin. So if you're not sure, for example, if you want to play a Mishima but you're not sure if Kazuya is the right Mishima for you, you might try him out for a week or maybe try out Devil Jin to see a more balanced playstyle, and you will naturally find the character that suits you most. But if you really like playing defensively and really like mind games, Kazuya is the Mishima for you. Oh, I almost forgot. One of his biggest strengths, in my opinion, is his crazy damage potential. And please don't judge me, it's been a while since I played Tekken, so my execution might be a bit off, but I will show you some basic staples when Kazuya has counter hits or rage on, just so you can understand the immense comeback potential this character has with his combos. And for this I want to change stage here. Let's see, why not Mishima Dojo? Seems fitting. So basically, Kazuya in general has already great combo damage if you have a wall, and his rage drive is one of the best rage drives in the game. Not because... I mean, let's just cover his rage drive. I think this is important if you want to understand the character. This here is plus 1 million or something like that. So if your opponent blocks this, you get a free mixer basically. If it hits, you can transition to his Devil Drop immediately, which gives you a lot of new moves. And if you use it in combos, you can enhance the damage potential immensely. I will just show you some basic Kazuya combos with wall. I think he has one of the best wall combos in the game. So just trying to figure out the exact wall carry distance. Let's keep it simple. Bit closer. Too much water. As you can see, it has great wall combo, which because of this wild landing here, great at picking up characters even though they're almost off the wall. And as you can see, his staple with wall is somewhere around 90. Without wall, I think his staples are around 64, yes, 64, which is also good damage. But once you add rage to the mix, you can... Did you see that? This rage is crazy. And you can apply his rage drive to a lot of his launchers. I don't know if Twin Piston allows for it. I don't think so. But basically you can apply it to a lot of his basic launchers. For great damage. Crazy damage. I'm gonna try for it, I cannot guarantee it, I haven't practiced it, but Kazuya has a counter hit down forward 2, and if you're fast, you can get a full launch here, which is gonna give it a couple of goes. If not, I'm gonna make a different video just to show this off, because this can be hard to get at. Oh, really got it. And I messed it up, but I messed it up because I wanted to do the rage drive a bit earlier, but as you can see, we're at almost 100 damage and there is more damage potential to this here. I would say, as far as I remember, if you manage to land this crazy stuff here, you get like 120 damage. So Kazuya has excellent combo damage if you have either a counter hit or rage. And just as a reminder just so you guys understand, for those who are not familiar with this concept, this move here is a counter hit launcher and your opponent is left standing for 13 frames. So during these 13 frames, if you do an electric, he gets launched very high in the air for extra damage. And your electric has a special input where you leave no neutral bit in between the inputs, which is really hard to do, but if you manage to do this counter hit move and in these 13 frames do a perfect 13 frame electric, you can launch him like I just did. But this is a very high level technique. Let's put everything we learned about him into perspective and what is required of you to play Kazuya. For example, you now understand the character, you think this might be the character for you. What do you need to play him? I would say you need to learn how to do a crouch dash motion, which is this here, a forward, neutral, down and down forward input. This input is necessary because this is a crouch dash. This input is necessary for a wave dash, which is just a crouch dash, which you cancel into another crouch dash. It is necessary for most of these moves like a hell sweep or crouch dash forward, an electric or crouch dash through, or a wind god fist. The difference between a wind god fist, a wind god fist and a god fist is that a wind god fist is unsafe and it's a crouch dash where you later press a 2. And if you time the first frame of the down forward 2 with the 2, you get the electric version. You can hear it because Kazuya says Doria. So what do you need to play him? You need to be able to do a crouch dash motion in general once. So you should be able to do this motion at least once. So you can do stuff like his hell sweep, or a wind god fist, or an electric. So one crouch dash should be something you should learn before you actually play him. And you should learn how to wind god fist at least, and if you're able to, try to do one electric. Kazuya is more reliant on the electric, so if you want to get out of low ranks like green or yellow ranks, you should be able and you're expected to do 2 somewhat quick electrics in a row, so you can do a staple combo here. So you should be able to do 2 electrics, but Kazuya's electrics are the easiest electrics to do because he has a lot of alternative input options, so a lot of mistakes are already covered by him. So 2 electrics should be something you should strive for when you're around yellow rank. And around yellow rank I would also recommend to learn how to wave dash. Apart from that, movement, green backdashing is advised, and that's about it. Don't worry about crazy stuff like 5 electric wind combos, whatever. Just at the very least, when you start out with the character, if you're really new, crouch dash moves like hell sweep, wind god fist, try to backdash. If you can't Korean backdash yet, try to at least backdash with backback. Try to create some space and then punish with good wave punisher like forward 2 or wind god fist. So try, when you play Kazuya, you need to move, so even if you start out, try to focus on movement and punishment. And you should really try to apply his 10 frame punishment first. I know it's hard to do, but when you play Mishima's, punishment is everything. If you don't like learning frames or punishment, I wouldn't recommend picking Mishima's anyway. So when you start out, learn crouch dash move, try to backdash a bit, concentrate on moving, and try to learn about frames as soon as possible and apply a 10 frame punishment. And this covers my introduction to Mr. Kazuya. I hope you learned something and see you next time. Bye!